Hello, co-journeyers, and welcome back to the Truth So Help Me Good. I am your host, Barbara Landry, and together we continue to explore some of the bigger questions about this journey we call life. Today, my special guest, Virginia DeLuca, is a writer and psychotherapist specializing in grief and trauma. She's the author of the award-winning novel, As If Women Mattered. Her essays have also appeared in a variety of publications, including the Huffington Post, The Writer, and the Iowa Review. She is based right here in Boston and is here to talk to us today about her recent memoir, If You Must Go, I Wish You Triplets. Welcome, Ginny.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. What a wonderful book. Um, lots of layers, lots of layers.
Mhm.
And I think to really appreciate some of those layers, it's important to understand your professional background because it really comes into play in the story. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I've been working as a psychotherapist in private practice and in agency work for decades. Um, and now I currently have a small private practice. Um, and officially a clinical social worker, MSW. So.
Okay. So, in essence, when your ex-husband Perry abruptly decided at 60 years old he wanted to leave your marriage, you found yourself on a journey not unlike many of the people that you have been counseling over the years.
Yes, I do feel in general that most people come into therapy in one form or another because of loss. And that's also true for most people at some point or another. People are going to have to encounter loss. Um, I also had a lot of loss in my life. By the time that he left, I was in my 60s. I was 60. Um, but I thought at that point that I had it pretty much together and that I could really, I have been a therapist for a while. I knew so much. I had experienced so much. So, I would be fine. But when he left, I was a mess. I was looking a bit at something earlier. I realized, oh, it's just like a kid who, had been promised ice cream and then plans change abruptly and they wail. But you promised. That's how I felt. We vowed we were going to be married. We were going to have our whole, you know, last third together. Um, and then he ended. So I was a mess.
Yeah, yeah. Your book begins in part like a mystery because this came out of nowhere for you. His
Hmm.
decision to leave, why he was leaving. Um, so you were trying not only to solve what was going on with him, but as your journey continued, were there other things that you discovered? You bring in your parents' relationship, you bring in your prior marriage. So, what are the things that you discovered? It was a deep dive. It wasn't, in essence, about just you and Perry, which makes the book so layered and rich. So, how did these other experiences, as you went through this, inform you in terms of how you ended up where you were?
So when he left, and it was a big surprise for me. First of all, it was an enormous amount of self-doubt. Who was I? How could I not have understood what was going on? How did I miss? He was so unhappy. I'm supposed to know people. I'm supposed to understand people. How could I, all those questions.
Yeah.
Um, and then really trying to understand what it means to have relationships and lose relationships. And what does that mean? Does that mean there's something wrong with me? Was there something wrong with all these people? And so, I did a lot of sort of exploration about that.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lovely uh, section or in the book where you talk about like revealing ourselves. How well do we really know other people? How much do other people really know us? And
Hmm.
it's such an interesting question because here we are in family relationships, here we are in marriages, and yet how much do we really know? How much do we really share? And you talk about there's risk associated with that. The risk of revealing too much, the risk of not saying enough. Would you mind
Hmm.
speaking a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think people really want to be known to other people. We ache in some ways to have somebody to know us. Um, but, we always worry about, ooh, if they really knew my yucky thoughts or my, behavior that wasn't so sweet and nice, will they still love me? So that's a risk, revealing too much. But if you only reveal a little, then you're pretending to other people, which is what we do. Like, if somebody, I use the example, if you're in Starbucks and you're having an interaction, even if you're having the worst day in the world, somebody says, "Oh, how are you?" Go, "I'm fine." And you smile and you say thank you and you take your coffee. That's an appropriate response. But if you did that with everybody, then you're simply then you're then you're having relationships with as a pretend
Right.
person.
So it's
So,
about our willingness to be vulnerable,
yeah.
which
And
is scary.
but it's very scary because maybe people won't like you so much.
Yeah.
And some people talk about, oh, we should be honest all the time. And I think honesty is very important in general, right? But you don't necessarily want to be brutal, right? In other words, do I look terrible today? You don't necessarily want to say, yeah, you really look awful. You know, so, we have to, calibrate some of that. But the big stuff, like, oh, by the way, I think I really wanted to have children, but I didn't remember to tell you, that's a big one.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Right. And that was the basis upon which Perry said he wanted to leave the marriage was to have children.
right, right.
Wow. So what were some of the most difficult things you had to face when Perry left?
It was really the question of my sense of self. Um, I really, uh, I really likened it to all the pieces of myself were sort of like smashed, and they were like it was felt to me like a garden um, that I had just broken things up, and there were shards of, understanding here, somebody who's very good at, writing there, all these different parts, and I just felt smashed.
Mm.
And I sort of had to put it back together again.
And how did you do that? I mean, just briefly, I mean, what are some of the key ways in which we can do that?
So, one of the things that I did that was extraordinarily helpful to me, and I offer it sometimes to clients who are feeling comfortable with it, is I wrote about it. I wrote every negative thought, everything I actually did, every email, every text. It's like I didn't understand what was happening, but I was going to write it down and I could read about it later.
Mm.
And, you know, uh, you know, and that is a very important way, I think, for resilience. You sort of, resilience through reflection is a great,
Mm.
I think sometimes having a good sense of humor with some of it. Some of the stuff is just absurd. It's like doesn't make any much sense. Doesn't
Hmm.
make sense. So we kind of laugh a little bit at it.
Yeah.
The ability to ask for help for me was very important. I talked to everyone. I told stories, and then when that person was tired, I would go to the next person. And I did that until I went to the next person because I needed people to, I needed to connect to people.
Right.
So that was very important.
Hmm. So, were there any silver linings in going through this process? I think you've just talked about maybe some of them, but like what were the silver linings in retrospect, in reflection, looking back at the experience?
Well, um, I think what it really helped me, a real silver learning lining is compassion.
Mm,
That everybody hurts. Everybody hurts. And just to remember that when we're dealing with people who are, you know, acting towards us crankily or whatever, it's usually from pain.
right.
Um, and it's also, and I was also shocked with how much love people gave toward me,
Mm,
even, you know, very acquaintances, that was so that was real. I was like, oh, I was astounded by that.
mm, And the ability to take it in,
Yes.
which
Yes.
we don't always do. Oh, no, I'm fine. I'm okay. I don't need any help, right?
Right,
Uh,
right, right.
yeah. So what is it?
Learning,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say learning how to ask for help is very important, but you're right. Learning how to accept the help when offered, that
Yeah.
is really crucial. Yeah.
Mm, mm, mm. So what is it that you hope that your readers will take away from your book?
I guess I really want people to know that life will change
Mhm.
unexpectedly, and you're not alone. It's not, there's no shame in, these big, massive twists that sometimes happen in a life, in most lives, and that it's, you're not alone through this. It's part of being human in many, many ways.
Mm, beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. And how do we get our hands on this book? What's the best way to find it?
So now it's available in bookstores, it's available online. The biggies, Amazon and Barnes and Noble and bookshop.org for all the local bookstores online.
Wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations. It's a
Thank you.
wonderful book. And I really appreciate you being here today to talk with us about it. Thank you,
Thank
Ginny.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.